I remember going down and being like, "Uh-oh, I can't." And like when you're that little, there's a whole lot of decisions that you don't make. You're careening down this hill, unable to stop your very tiny legs. You have a lightsaber that's like this in your hand, and you're like, well, obviously I can't throw this to stop myself. And obviously I can't go down because that could hurt, you know? Hey gang, welcome to the Dudes Podcast. I'm Loren, also known as Uncle. With me as always is my brother Devin.
Yo.
And our brother-in-law Taylor.
Howdy ho.
We're so glad that you've joined us. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. And hey, even tell friends about this. Let's all have just
Definitely tell friends.
Just a big time together. Yeah, let's not call it a big time because nobody talks like that unless they're in the 20s.
It's going to be a big time, folks.
Boy. Golly, this is going to be the big, we're in the big time, fellas. Oh, boy.
I'm trying to think of every like 20s cliche I can think of. And you know how many I can think of? Zero.
Zero. Yeah. So anyway, this is
Bee's
how we...
knees.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? Boy, I had just abandoned the intro. What was it Barney said about Thelma Lou? He says, "You're the cats."
The cats.
Cats meow or something.
Cats meow.
Yeah, but he shortened it. He said, "You're the cats." But anyway, take a look in the description below to find the links to our main channel, the BFF Gang channel, as well as our other accounts all over social media land. The Twitter. No, we're not even on the Twitter, but you know what to do. Anyway, I'm not going to explain it to you. Last week on episode 2, we learned all there was to learn about. Actually, no, not all there was to learn. There's so much more to Devin Burrell. But we learned a good bit. And we learned how he escaped an assault charge from assault with a
Kyle
go-kart.
Or Kevin.
Kevin. So hey, if you didn't listen to that episode,
if it was assault, then it would have been premeditated, right? Or at least purposeful.
And I don't know. Hey, if you run over somebody with a go-kart, what is it? Yeah, it was a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah. Misdemeanor assault.
What's like the assault version of manslaughter? You know, like
I think manslaughter.
Really
I think manslaughter is like somebody's dead.
Well, right? Yeah, but what's the assault version of that? Like,
man, we can't use any of this. But high monetization. So yeah, Devin ran over his friend with a go-kart, and if you ask me, he had it coming. But yeah, so hey, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here. Tell a friend. Let's have a party. Devin, back to you.
So today we're going to talk about Uncle. And I didn't write anything out because I don't have to. Because Loren is... Let's put it like this. I tell my son to talk to Uncle about how to be a big brother.
No.
Loren is single-handedly the best big brother anyone could ever have. He is one of my favorite guitar players. Hard stop. Like just everyone included.
Oh my goodness.
He is my closest friend and confidant. He's been there for me in the darkest times of my life, and he has been there for me at the best times. And I don't mean to sound cliche, but that's what makes us a gang. And you know what is a gang? It's a gang is a tight-knit group of... let me go back and do that, sorry. What is a gang? A gang is a tight-knit group of people that no matter what goes on in between them, they never, ever forsake each other. And we have history. We have, we haven't always gotten along. But no matter what, we always came back to loving each other. And I would say that Lauren and I are kind of like the start of the gang. And I remember I used to, when I was single, every single weekend. And being married now, I know the time seed they were sowing into me at that time. But every single weekend, I would go stay with them at least every Friday, or I'm sorry, at least every Saturday, because I would ride to church with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just the best. And there's not enough time in this podcast to talk about how awesome he is. The things he's done to so into the rest of the BFF gang's lives, and how even though he and Paula don't have children, they are still some of the most trustworthy people to leave our children with, because we know that Uncle will burn the world down to protect our kids.
This is true.
So, with that being said, I feel like I could still sit here and continue to talk about it, but it might get a little awkward for him.
Well, it's already awkward because I did not give you as good of an introduction as that, but
you didn't. So we should probably redo that.
We'll go back and do that again. But thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. That means a lot. And Taylor, what about you? No, I'm just kidding. Taylor, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Well, it all started West Philadelphia.
Wait a minute. There's the Fresh Prince again. How does Will Smith keep getting... It's William. Your friend, this is hearkening back to episode 1, was Will Smith.
They're the same age.
Do you know why he slapped Chris Rock? Because Chris didn't have bacon. Now, see, folks, you do have to go back and watch episode 1 to get that.
Oh, yeah.
I am 55 years old, so
that's
me
true.
and Will are at that same age.
Well, yeah. And it explains now why your middle name is Smith. So
That's true.
Wow.
it all
Full circle.
I feel like I learned something every podcast about
Taylor. It also explains how they got the idea for the first plot, for the plot of the first Bad Boys movie. They just looked at Taylor's family's life.
Yeah, Will's just like, I actually knew a family. We can just copy, their life.
You guys, I was buddies with this, had an odd relationship with this family where I would just kind of like go in their house. They totally ran a drug ring. Anyway, no, they didn't. So Taylor's family is great. Thank you, Devin, for that sweet intro. And yes, if I had enough matches, Uncle would burn the world down if necessary. But yeah, I don't know if that gets us demonetized or whatever.
I don't think so.
That's okay.
We're not talking about anything conservative, so
that's true. Yeah, I guess we could, or at least put it in the thumbnail.
Right.
We're
gonna put a big picture of Trump and an American eagle, and maybe a shark with a laser on his head.
With a laser on his head, and something about the New York City justice system. So,
and we just dated the podcast.
Yeah, that's okay. Look, it's 2024. It's, but there, I dated the podcast. So yeah, I go by Uncle in the gang. I am the oldest of the gang overall. Yeah, I mean, there's nobody. Everybody's younger than me, which is kind of strange. But yeah, been married to my wife this year, 24 years. Like Devin said, we have no children of our own, and that's cool because we get all the time in the world to spend with our nieces and nephews and the family overall. But we have 3 pets, 3 kitty cats. I grew up a dog person, and I grew up with a mother who was terrified of cats.
I still don't understand that one. Apparently, Aunt Sharon is too.
Hi, Aunt Sharon. Yeah, so I grew up not hearing great things about cats, and then I met the woman I was going to marry, and she was very much a cat person, and I was very much a dog person, and now I have 3 cats. So, marriage.
But they're awesome.
They are, and I am now. I mean, since the first cats that she picked out, I have been very fond of them, and yeah, they're awesome. They're actually the ones that we have are really more like dogs, but like Devin said, I go by Uncle in the gang. This is because my oldest nephew John, when he started talking, even though like I have video of Devin and Kayla saying Uncle Loren, when he started talking, he just called me Uncle, and I fell in love with that. And one of my, it's burned in my brain that he would be walking up and down the stairs of the house with me very close by, and he would just randomly say, "Hi, Uncle," and I would say, it would always go this way. He'd say, "Hi, Uncle." I'd say, "Hey, buddy," and he'd repeat, "Hey, buddy." It was my, oh man, I could never forget it, and never forget it. Sorry. And the other favorite thing that John used to do is he would start doing something and you'd say, "Hey, John, don't do that." And he would say with like all seriousness, "I have to." But now Luke calls me Uncle. Sarah calls me Uncle. She was not running, but it was a little bit of a gallop to me this past Sunday, and she yelled, "Uncle, here I come." And so yeah, and it's just awesome. And Lily will say Uncle as soon as she starts talking, which could be any day now.
She says Dada, so
yeah. And
like
honestly, the last time
day.
you guys were over here, it kind of sounded like she said Uncle a little bit.
I will say she like repeats. I'm pretty sure she repeats things, but it's kind of like baby talk. So you're like, yeah. Was that it? Did you?
Oh,
I don't know. But she'll say it over and over again. So I can say hello. She'll be like, "Hello," and you're like, "Well, was that it?"
Yeah. She's just. But what she doesn't have in just talking, she makes up for in just sweetness.
Smiles.
Oh man, she. I was when you guys were over here, I was holding her, and she would look around, and then just take a moment to stop, and just give me sugar. It was the sweetest thing. So, and Sarah's the same way. I'll be holding her, and she'll be looking around, then she'll turn around to me and just hug me. So yeah, I am a rich uncle. But yeah, my history. So everybody else has gone through their history. We'll do this and see if it's not awkward. But
how long have we been brothers?
First of all? Let's see, 14. To carry the 4. Yeah, so that will be 39 years at your birthday.
Wow, you know my age better than me. I just told everybody how old I was. I wanted them to think 36. I was 25.
So. Shout out to our dad who's undoubtedly watching this, but one of my favorite moments is we were at church, and I'm married. I had been married for a while at that point. I think I was in my early 30s, and Dad's preaching, and he looked down and he said, "Loren, how old are you? 18?" And I'm like, but it was great. I mean, I went home going, all right, I still, this is great. No wonder. Yeah. But, and he was in a flow, and 18 just came out. We know it was a mistake, Dad. It's okay. But it's funny. But anyway, born in South Carolina, to a 24-year-old mother and a 22-year-old dad. So, right?
Golly.
Can you imagine that being that young, and hey, you have a son?
I was dealing with learning how to be married Like just getting used to that at that age.
Yeah. I got married at when I was 24. So now you can do the math and figure out how old I am. But yeah,
that's how old I was when we got married too. 24.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so they got married the year prior, and then I showed up, and young parents. And I grew up on the road with my parents. Our dad was, when I was growing up, an evangelist. And back in those days in the Southeast, churches looked very different than they do now. There were no big, what do you call them, mega churches. You had churches that were running, 100, couple hundred, something like that. And that was considered a massive church. But we were on the road all the time. In fact, I think as soon as Mom and I were discharged after I was born, and he'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were on a plane like right after that to go to a meeting somewhere. And I think that's where I threw up on his suit on the plane. And by the way, vomit will come up a lot in this history. But yeah, grew up on the road with Dad as an evangelist preacher, and my mom sang during the meetings. I wish I'd taken a picture of it, because right over here on my wall in my studio.
Is it easy to take down?
No. Is our mother's Grammy nomination.
Maybe we can put a picture right here.
Huh?
Maybe we can
insert it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. It's her Grammy nomination from 1974. She was on the record by the Lefevres called "Stepping on the Clouds." It was best gospel album or best gospel performance or something like that. I can't see it because of the light, but I didn't know about that. Our mother is in heaven now, and I didn't know about that until she went to heaven. Devin, did you?
About the Grammy nomination?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know about half the stuff, honestly.
Okay, but definitely not the Grammy nomination.
No, definitely not the Grammy nomination.
Okay. So, yeah, that was something to find that out. So, hey, parents, if you got cool stuff that happened in your life, if you were nominated for a Grammy or something like that, tell your kids. I know there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on with having little ones, getting them. I think I like the way Lindsay put it. That's our sister, Taylor's wife. When Luke was a baby, I think I asked her, "How's your day going?" And she said, "Oh, just keeping my son alive." So that's kind of, I mean, for a little while, that's true. That's your job, just keeping him alive. But,
you know what?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a random thought about this.
No, that's good.
So, when it comes to parents and telling their kids things, like, for a parent, the kid's been in their life for a long time before the kid is actually like cognizant or aware, and you're teaching them all kinds of stuff. So it's like, I've thought, like, how do you, I don't know, it's hard to know, like, if you've told your kids something and if they remember it, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like that kind of, I don't know. I've thought about that before. Like, maybe my parents did tell me something, but I just didn't care, or I, wasn't paying attention, or maybe I was 6 years old and had no idea what the heck they were talking about.
Yeah, I do remember. That's a really good point. I do remember that my mother told me a lot that she was a great speller. So to tell me that,
there's one word. Oh man.
Yeah. She
one word she just flat out could not spell, and I will not say it on this podcast. It's not profanity, but
yeah, it's a bodily function that your kids think are funny, and where there's an F there, she put the PH, and it's for gas. But But yeah, she spelled it with a PH. I think when she was...
See, I was thinking about another bodily function, that when you have an upset tummy, there's, sometimes when that bodily function acts up too much.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I don't...
yeah, I remember she was writing a note for me.
Don't know how she got. Did she get the D and that's about it?
She's like
D.
She's like,
oh
I don't know how
boy,
to spell this. And now thinking back, I'm like, why was she putting that in a school note?
yeah. That's a lot of detail. She's like, dear school, my son was out because. Oh boy, let's go into some detail here. Yeah. Why go into that? What made her go, you know what, this is going to be important, because if the teacher gets this and I haven't been as detailed as possible, that teacher may go, now hold on, Mr. Burrell. Tell me what happened. But yeah, so that's another word she couldn't spell. So bodily functions she wasn't sharp with. But apparently she was a great speller with everything else. My point being, she told me that all the time, but she never mentioned. Also, I had a Grammy nomination. Now eat your vegetables. That's silly that I just put
Grammy is spelled G-R-A.
Right. And I just said that she would say eat your vegetables. That is also not true.
No, she never said that.
No. Green beans or corn. But yeah.
And peas.
Yeah, occasionally some peas snuck in there. But hey, we are off path. So, quick history about our dad. He started preaching when he was 12 years old, and that's all he's really. He's known that for most of his life, and that's what he's been for all of my life. And he still is today. He's a pastor now, and he does many, many other things. And
on the road when he was 16, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
as soon
but
as
actually,
he got his life.
Yeah, and actually before that, his parents would take him to churches to preach, if I remember correctly. But I do remember, and I'm just inserting this here, that when I started school, I think it was in first or second grade, I got sick and went to the health room. And, Dad is still a preacher. He is still a preacher. They, even though back in the day churches were much smaller, you would still get an offering. Sometimes people gave you a chicken, and sometimes people actually gave you things that you could use to take care of your family.
I'd take some chicken.
And right now,
chicken.
Right now, yeah, like
not cooked,
right?
Not
fried. Here's a chicken.
You have to take it out back and right. do the work yourself.
Before we get back on the road, let's so I'm in the health room, and when you're in elementary school, especially first or second grade, you hear a lot about policemen, you hear a lot about firemen, you hear a lot about doctors and astronauts and construction workers. And when you have, dads come on career day or whatever, if they had that when I was in first or second grade, you didn't hear a lot of preachers. So I associated those jobs as jobs, which they are. But I didn't understand that being a preacher was my dad's job. So I go to the health room, and the school nurse says, okay, Lauren, well, I'm going to call your dad. Is he at work? I said, no, ma'am, my dad doesn't work. And she said, your dad doesn't work? And I said, no, ma'am, he's a preacher. And she said, so being a preacher is your daddy's job? I said, no, ma'am, my daddy doesn't have his job. He doesn't have a job. She said, but didn't you say he's a preacher? Yes, ma'am. So that's his job. I said, no, ma'am, my daddy doesn't have a job. And it was this
you're not getting this, lady.
It never, and I'm like, how am I not explaining this properly to you, ma'am. He isn't employed, okay? He's a preacher. And
let's go over vocations. Police officer, firefighter, astronaut. I don't hear preacher on there.
Yeah.
Which preacher's not on that list.
That is quite a jump, too. I mean, policemen and firemen are great, but to jump from those two to astronaut. You know what, boys and girls? You can be a police officer. You can be a fireman. Astronaut. Whoa, that is how did you get this job? What did you miss out on the other two, and astronaut's too far? But, anyway, so Dad got to the health room and she told him that story, and I'm just sitting there like, right, this lady totally doesn't get it. And so she goes to, I don't know, do something. I don't know what they do in the health room to send me home. And Dad said, hey, buddy, being a preacher is Daddy's job. That's what I do for work. That's my job. And I'm like, okay, Dad.
He doesn't get it either.
Yeah. I'm like,
it's like, here, listen to what I told the lady earlier.
Yeah. we'll cover this later, Dad.
Let's cover this again. Police officer, fireman,
astronaut. What's missing there? And I kind of looked at him like, we'll cover this later. It's okay. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay not to have a job. It's all right. Don't worry about it. But
still love you.
Yeah. So I for all this time on the road, I was an only child. For the first, I was an only child for 9 years. 9 years. There was we covered it, I think, once before. Yeah, the last episode. We had a brother born when I was 4.5, and he popped in and headed right back out to heaven. Said no thanks, and
he'd rather hang out with Jesus than us.
Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. But there's a lot of explaining to do when we all get there. But yeah, so for 9 years it was just me, and during that time, when you're on the road, we would either drive to where we were going, just the car, and then we'd stay at maybe the pastor's house, or sometimes we'd stay in the basement of the church, or very rarely do I remember being in a motel.
The basement of the church?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's and again, he'd have to fill in what I don't remember, but I remember Mom and Dad talking about when I was a baby. I think we were staying in the basement of the church, and they had to keep rats out of the bassinet. And and apologies if I've gotten any of that wrong. I was too busy being in the bassinet.
God, you're so selfish.
I was such a baby then. But to being the only child and being very, very young while on the road, and not a lot of these pastors had their own children. It wasn't like it is today, where a lot of people in their 20s and 30s that have 2.5 kids and really tight jeans and cool hair.
Wait, where's the 0.5? What is?
Huh?
The 0.5.
I've just always heard 2.5 kids. I don't understand it either. So we can mark that and take that out. But the pastors back then, most of them were older, and if they had kids, the kids were grown and had moved away. So it's just me, as I'm the only kid in the room. So I learned how to be quiet around adults. I learned very early on to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, and I kept myself occupied. And sometimes these revivals would go on for weeks. And by the way, I know this is hard to imagine, but there were no cell phones. There were no tablets. There was none of that.
Kids have no idea. They don't know what delayed gratification is. Like, they don't know what it is to. So last week I talked about how like Journey Foreigner was a Frontier, was my first album where I started to notice things. Mm-hmm. Man, I had to rewind that tape back.
Oh, yeah.
To hear the song over and over, and you had to sit there and you play. Oh, nope, not yet.
Yep.
Dude, kids don't even understand. My kids get mad when commercials. They're like, a commercial comes on, and they're like, "What is this?"
Oh, and the thing is, back in the and it was like this probably for you guys when you were growing up too, but especially for me, there were some times that the commercials were more entertaining than the TV shows.
They're definitely more nostalgic. I remember.
Oh yeah,
some of the. Dude, I remember some of the. Do you remember the circus recording the Ringling Brothers that I had recorded? It was on.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Do you remember that?
I do.
Some of the commercials and like the transitions, like I remember that more than the circus. You know?
Yeah, I'm thankful that some people are putting up accounts on Instagram and YouTube about everything that's retro, like cartoons and TV shows and all that from back then. Occasionally I'll go watch those because I don't know, it's fun. But I'll get to that in a second because I've got some things to say about going back and looking at things that you thought were amazing when you were a kid, and then looking back at it in your late 40s. Whoo, doggy. But yeah, I would, even at ages 4 and 5, I would help my dad set up for the services. There was a time where he had a tent, and I would help him set it up as much as I could as a 5-year-old. I'd help put chairs out. And
little buddy.
I remember this one guy, the center pole of the tent, is crucial, right? And this one guy's like, I don't remember who he was. I'm sure Dad does. But he's like, no, I got it. We don't need to wait for any help or any equipment or anything like that. So, and it is a large steel pole. And he starts walking this thing up with his hands. Well, my hands are right in the front of the camera. But he starts walking it up, right? So he picks it up, gets it on his shoulder, and starts walking it up. Well, you get to a certain point where you can't take that up anymore because of the weight of the pole. And he's just kind of like, and that thing slips out and beans him on the head and knocks him out. And I just remember being a little kid. Dad knows what I said, but I'm just like, huh. That I don't think that was supposed to happen. That's not what I said, but I remember that being my. I even as a little kid, I knew that was a bad idea, and when it happened, I was not surprised. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. He is definitely not an astronaut. But yeah, I would run. Dad had a little PV soundboard with a couple of house speakers and a couple of monitors. I think it was an 8-channel board or something like that. And at 5, I would run sound for him. And we had signals that I would know to turn something up or turn it down. And I would start the tape to record the sermon. And then when he would have the people stand for the altar call, I would take the tape out and put it in the duplicator machine and start making copies for people to get after service. But yeah, those are fond memories. I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was a different way to grow up than most kids, but I saw things that nobody else has seen. I mean, we're talking miracles, right? People have come too late to tell me that the things I believe are ridiculous, especially in today's world, but that I'm, old man in the sky and blah, 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 blah. No, I've seen things that you just can't explain. And I wasn't under the power of suggestion. I was 5 and 6, just watching it. But, there were some things that weren't great, being an only child on the road and, having to entertain yourself. Sometimes I would, well, not sometimes, but I would draw a lot. I would,
Lauren's a fantastic artist, by the way.
I haven't drawn in a long time, but thank you. You're very sweet to say that.
Can you draw something up right now? For all the viewers?
Draw. But yeah, I've got some drawings stored somewhere. I don't exactly remember where they are. But anyway, sometimes if we were able to get me some action figures, I could play with those under the pews. I would get under the pews and play with those, but I'd be very quiet. And sometimes I'd just sit there. I should back up. Talking about not having a phone or a tablet. We did have a trailer that we pulled for some amount of time, and we had at one point we had a Betamax player that eventually became an old VHS, one of the first VHS players, and a very small TV. And I remember we had recorded off of TV Superman the movie, the 1978 movie, and somehow we got Superman 2, which came out I think in 1980. And then for whatever reason, to this day I don't know why we had this recorded off of TV, but The Wizard of Oz. So I had for a long time I had Superman the movie completely memorized beginning to end.
No. You still have the whole movie memorized. I've never seen anything like it before in my whole life.
This is true.
Someone that I can literally say what noise. I can literally say what noise is going to happen next, and he can tell you. Yeah.
Oh boy. And Taylor's bringing something up. This is not what I had planned.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to.
No, okay.
You don't have to prove it.
But I still can. And
actually, fun fact about Superman the movie, real quick. John Samuel, for whatever reason, Superman is an uncle's house thing. Like, I'm like, hey, I have it too, and he's like,
that I tell you, that's one of my. It's a new core memory of mine. Is having John and Luke both in my lap in my recliner and turning on the 1978 Superman movie, and both of them. I mean, 1978.
It's a good movie, man.
And they're both mesmerized. Think about all the stuff they have to watch these days, all the great effects, all the cartoons and everything. They are mesmerized by this movie. And John actually asked me, he says, "Uncle, is that the real Superman?" And I didn't want to say
yes.
I said he's the only Superman. But I did tell him Superman is not real, buddy. Jesus is. And now Luke is he is all in on Superman, and I love that. 100%. I love that because
he's got the costume and everything.
Oh man,
he's got two of them actually.
Oh, that's
really
amazing. I'll come over to their house sometimes, and he greets me at the door, excited, wearing his Superman suit.
See, that is all my fault.
Yeah, it is.
But
actually, most of the shows that he's into is your fault.
That's true. I did show him the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse when he was like little. When we were at your house in Georgia. I think Paula was sick and you guys were at work, and I had him, and I turned on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he was just.
Hang on.
That was before Disney lost their mind.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's digress just for a second.
Sure.
You showed Luke. You got him into Superman.
Yeah.
And Mickey Mouse.
Uh-huh.
My son, Leo the Truck. But
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry. We were looking for things. He was staying at my house, and John is still into cars, but when he was little, I really wanted him to have things that were simple, but he still wanted to watch cars, and I found Leo the Truck, and it is to the people who created Leo the Truck.
Kids like it. Kids like it.
What is the matter with you? I mean,
it's so boring.
Just try, right?
And that
try
theme
just
song.
A little bit.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway.
I haven't even seen this.
Oh yeah,
it's bad.
I introduced it to him, and I'll never forget. He gets home and start asking for it, and they find it because they have to reach out to me to find out what he's talking about. And then when it starts playing, Devin texts me, and then he's like, "What did you do? What did you show my son?" Because it's a perfectly innocent show, but it is boring. But anyway. So, on ways. So yeah, I had Superman the movie memorized. By the way, if you pull up the 1978 Superman the movie, there's an intro of a little kid, and he reads the first pages of a comic. Then the intro happens, and the very first line after the theme and everything and the credits roll is, "This is no fantasy, no careless product of wild imagination." There you go.
I can't do that with anything.
And I could probably quote what the little kid says at the beginning, in the decade of the 1930s. Never mind.
See,
I was going to ask Devin if you have a movie like that or a show or anything.
No, not even close. I mean, not even
the movies that you came up with, Devin. Let's be honest, and you had Van Damme's Bloodsport. Good luck remembering anything he said. You know, I mean,
I did learn how to do a split through that though.
And by the way, that is true. I would come downstairs and Devin would be watching Bloodsport on a Saturday morning, doing a perfect split between two miniature recliners. Do you remember doing that? Just like Van Damme did, just two little chairs that were his and Lindsay's size, a perfect split with his shirt off and everything. It was amazing.
So, Lauren,
I've
let me
never
ask
seen
you
this
this.
movie.
This is something I don't know about you.
Okay.
Which is bizarre. Is really bizarre. Also, I didn't know that you've never had anything but a peanut butter jelly sandwich with grape jelly. So
there is no other peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Back to you, Devin.
Oh, anyways, so when you watch Superman, did you ever play along with, like, so when I watch stuff, it was very common for me to act out the movie along with it. Did you ever do that?
No, I would do it afterwards.
Got it. Okay.
Because I would, and I kind of, I don't act out movies now, but
Definitely not.
Totally not.
I'm totally gonna.
What?
I was outside at my pool after I watched Dune, trying to act like I'm on a sandworm. It's water, but whatever.
It works.
I would study things. I do this when I go to concerts with bands. I sit there and I take it in and I study it, and I'm enjoying it, but I don't really say much. I don't really react to it, or I didn't. And then I would replay all those things. And then when I would go outside to play or something like that, I remember when I saw Return of the Jedi, Mom and Dad took me to see that in the theater. I got this lightsaber. I remember being disappointed that it was yellow and not green, like Luke's was in Return of the Jedi.
They got you a yellow lightsaber? Where did that come from?
I think our grandparents got me one.
It's probably off-brand.
Yeah,
they
did the best they could.
Because that like the yellow lightsabers have a meaning, but I don't think that was like written.
It was not a thing back then. The only thing they had was like, white, blue, red, green. Back then, they didn't have any of these, colorful ones.
White.
Well, I thought the one in the first movie that Obi-Wan had was white. Why are we talking about this? But is it blue? I thought it was white.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
it looked white.
Blue.
Okay,
that was just poor special effects, Lauren.
Oh, okay. So the one I had was yellow, and it had openings at the top, so when you would swing it around, it would catch the wind and just go roar, roar, roar. Sounded more like Chewbacca than a lightsaber. Yeah, exactly. So I'd be swinging. I'm like, that doesn't sound like this thing at all. I'm out behind the trailer, and I'm just a little kid, just frustrated. Just go, why don't you sound like Luke Skywalker? And I distinctly remember I was swinging it at some bushes that a pastor had, and it was a very thorny bush. And when I pulled my lightsaber out, it had thorns all stuck in it. And I'm like, oh, man, because it was plastic. And forever, I just had thorns stuck in this thing, and it messed up the sound. So instead of doing that thing, it just went.
So, and with how particular you and me were about it being like the unadulterated original. Like with action figures, I didn't want the weird, like, gold Batman.
Oh no,
right?
no. I didn't want scuba action Batman or anything like that.
I wanted the original.
Yeah.
So I've become very particular about, like, Caleb will not buy John toys without running it past me. Because if he says he wants something, I'm like, it's going to be the one.
Yeah.
Because I was so particular about it. But the thing is, I don't think my son got that part of my personality, because he'll be like, this is cool, but I found this stick outside.
Yeah.
It's going to be whatever, you actually bought me.
I remember I had a Superman cape that was very disappointing because it didn't,
These
one,
are
it
real
didn't,
things, man.
They are real. It didn't flow like Superman's cape
important.
did in the movie. It didn't come down long enough, and instead of like going in his in the shirt like his did, it just tied around your neck. And I'm like, well, this looks ridiculous.
I actually had a problem when the action figures got like these silicone
Oh yeah,
kind of capes.
Yep.
I was like, well, that can't blow in the wind. That doesn't help me.
What are you gonna do with that? So yeah, I had that movie memorized, and I would just study. I would just study the movies, and I would study. But I was that way with music from a very young age. I would listen to the tapes I had then, and I wouldn't necessarily sit down and listen to music to enjoy it. I would sit down and listen to music and study it, just listening to it and listening to all the things that went into putting it together. And I still do that today. But there was one time I was outside playing by myself, and we had parked the trailer next to a hill. And Dad tells this story really well. But I would go up to the hill and charge down. I think I had my lightsaber or something like that. I'd be like, I don't know what. I wasn't acting out a scene because there's none of that in the movies. But I mean, if you can run down a hill really fast, you're fast. And when you're 5 years old, that means a lot. And
it stresses me out when my kids run downhill.
Oh, well, and when you're 5 years old and your mom buys your britches from the Husky section at J.C. Penney's, you still want to be fast as fast as you can. By the way, she would always embarrass the daylights out of me because our mother, God love her, who's in heaven, like I said, she could never do anything quietly, ever. And she would always, like, if there's a salesman in J.C. Penney or Sears, like way over there, she would yell, sir, where's your Husky section for boys? I'm like, okay.
Oh, she did the same thing for me.
Yeah. So
same thing. By the way, where in the world were they like Husky? That's what we should call it.
We should call it that. We should call it that. They don't have enough problems with
exactly
with their peers.
Husky. I mean, Huskies are cool dogs.
And what is like? Wouldn't it just be another size?
Just make it a number. Just call it a number and say, "Oh, that size is here, madam." Right next to everybody else's clothes. They are continuation of pants in various sizes. Enjoy.
I don't think they do the Husky thing anymore, though.
Probably not. But anyway, there were some. Most of it was really, really, really good times. Hey, one thing about growing up on the road is you can have a lot of girlfriends because they're not going to remember you when you go off to the next church. And that pretty girl at the next church when you're 5 years old, she's not going to know that you've got a girlfriend at the last church. So I never went through the girls or gross stage. It was just like, oh no, I've got cooties. No, it's okay. It's fine. But yeah, there were some bad times too. There was, I don't want to get super serious about this, but you can't, this is why parents really need to watch who's near their children, what's happening with their children, especially even in a place like church where you think, okay, everything's fine here. I don't know. Should I talk about this? Yeah.
Give me the nervous sweats.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. So this, I don't remember what city this was in, but there was I sat next to my mom typically, and back then all the churches had pews, and at the end of my dad's sermons, he would have people stand up, and it's times like that you think you've got your eyes on your kids and you don't really. And I'm just a little dude. Again, 4, 5, something like that. And it had been a long service for a little kid. And I was sitting next to my mom. I remember she was on my right. And I don't remember paying attention to who was sitting on my left, but I laid down because I thought, well, everybody's standing up. This is a good time to lay down. And I no sooner laid down than the largest woman I had ever seen decided she had been standing up for far too long. And she sat on me. My face, shoulder all the way down to my wrist.
Oh my gosh.
Were covered by her bahonkas. And all I could do was kick my legs and do this on her hip. So I'm kicking my legs. This is all I could reach. Now keep in mind, my arm is stretched out all the way. It is completely flattened against my body. So I'm only able to kick my legs, which I have not alerted my mother to this yet, because she's apparently got her eyes closed, praying or something like that. And all that's out are my legs and my hand, and I'm just tapping this woman's just lard hip with my hand, and she feels nothing. She does not feel the 4-year-old human that is under her behind. She's comfortable. She's like, oh, that must be the lumbar support that I've been hearing about in these new pews.
That's the Holy Spirit.
That's what that is. This is a very special service. I can feel that. And I do remember hearing from the muffled sounds. I remember hearing my mother go, and then finally my mother pulls this giant lady off of me, and I'm like, oh, and of course I start crying and screaming. She's got to take me out. My hair's all messed up. I couldn't breathe under there. And it was that. Pay attention to your kids.
Dare I ask, do you remember the smell?
I do. I do.
Oh, no.
I do.
Was it unpleasant?
What time of year was it? Was this a tent meeting or?
No, this was in a church.
Thank God. Taylor just made it so much worse.
Hold on. You have to understand, a lot of these buildings were older, so central heating and air wasn't in all of them. So
Lord help me.
And it was the end of the service.
Yeah. So this is 80. Max 81. Yeah, 80, probably 81. Yeah, actually, I think it was 80.
Is that the year or the temperature?
1980. I think it was the temperature, too. I don't remember where we were. I don't remember the pastor's name. I don't remember what my dad preached. I don't remember what time of year it was. But I remember her sitting on me, and I do remember the smell. And I am in my late 40s.
Well, the suffocation cutting off the air to your brain probably caused you to forget some.
That's called trauma.
That's called trauma. That's called trauma. But yeah,
we got heavy real quick on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring the tone down, everybody.
Literally heavy.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So yeah, again, growing up on the road, I was always a good kid. I didn't get into a ton of trouble. I stayed with my parents. I didn't go off and do things I wasn't supposed to. I think the worst trouble I ever got into was at one of Dad's tent meetings, and I mentioned I would have a girlfriend from place to place. And man, at this tent meeting, this one girl, she marked me, and she was not what my 5-year-old self thought was the definition of beauty. So I ran away from her and made it back to our trailer that was parked beside the tent, and Dad was in the trailer, and in a little punk move, I don't know if people say punk anymore, but I picked up a rock and I beamed her. I mean,
no.
Good. Yeah,
and in her mind, like she's like, you're that kid that threw a rock at her.
Oh yeah, and
you're that kid in somebody's memory. You're like,
while
one
announcing
time this kid,
and I know she remembers that I did it.
She's probably doing a podcast right now, and telling this story from her perspective.
And she uses the quote from Forrest Gump, sometimes there just aren't enough rocks. But I remember screaming, "You're ugly," and I threw the rock at her. Now, thinking about how young I was and how young she was, if that happened to one of my nieces, we're just talking about blind rage. But I didn't. But I didn't know.
They're beautiful. So
yeah, that would never. But I to my dad's credit, I remember throwing the rock, hitting her, and being pleased with the throw.
You're like, did it?
I wasn't like, oh,
should I play baseball?
Yeah, I remember not being like, oh man, I totally beamed her right in the face, and she is straight up crying and running back to her mom. I was like, that was a really good throw. What?
I might have a future with this.
Yeah, I was, and I remember standing in front of the trailer door like, huh, man, that was.
Anyone else want some?
Because I'm the little kid that. Oh, I didn't finish my story about the running down the hill, but anyway, Dad opened the trailer door. I remember his arm coming out and pulling me inside and just tearing up my behind like he should have, as was right to do. I got a good spanking for that. But talking about having to entertain yourself running down that hill, this particular day I was running down with the lightsaber, and one particular time I was running down, I lost control. And instead of like ditching the run and just falling down, I kept going. And I couldn't stop, and here comes the trailer. And Dad said he's inside studying and praying, and he hears wham, and the whole trailer goes, and he comes out, and I'm out.
Well, I'm like
that's what from what he said, I was out. Because and I have to believe him, because I remember going down and being like, uh-oh, I can't. And like when you're that little, there's a whole lot of decisions that you don't make. You're careening down this hill, unable to stop your very tiny legs. You have a lightsaber that's like this in your hand, and you're like, well, obviously I can't throw this to stop myself. And obviously I can't go down because that could hurt. I didn't know how to do a judo roll or anything like that. And I just kept running and slammed into the side of the trailer, and I knocked myself out. So a lot happened in my head when we were on the road.
Wow.
But yeah, so these are the things that happen when you're just left to come up with
really
things to do.
What's really scary is I can see my son doing something like that. But then getting so mad because I'm like, why would you hurt yourself like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I watched Luke do that the other day. I recorded it. I have it on video. He was running down
that's
a hill.
right.
He didn't hit a trailer. Yeah, there's a snippet of it. He didn't hit a trailer, but he was running down a hill, and just you could see he was running way faster than his little. He was going way faster. His feet could carry him, and he just went straight forward, hit the ground. He was fine.
There's a video of Devin doing something similar. Now, Devin was 2 or 3, and the hill wasn't a steep one, but his very small legs.
Wrong. It was very steep, Loren.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mountain. You're right, Devin.
It's actually Mount Everest.
Yeah,
if I recall correctly.
My dude's legs were. He was a very small little guy, and he was trying to catch up with me, and he bit the dust, but it wasn't hard. He didn't hit his head. Yeah, I got it on. I have the footage. Taylor, can you bring that up real quick?
Oh yeah.
Okay, never mind.
That's me hacking the mainframe.
Yeah, can you hack the bridge?
Yeah, I'm crossing the firewall now.
Right. Yeah. If I can just hack into their mainframe, that's my favorite, and not use a mouse. Just got it.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. 5 seconds, just tippy tapping on a keyboard. Who knew it was that easy?
Nobody has
NORAD
to use a mouse in movies.
Yeah,
nobody's like.
Yeah, you never hear them like reset the mouse to get it back in the middle of the screen, and they're never like, where's the
mouse?
Hang on, can you give me new batteries real quick? Nobody's clickety click.
Maybe I need to clean the little ball in the mouse.
You remember those? The wired mouse with a little rubber ball and all that. Mm-hmm.
Please like and subscribe in 10 minutes.